Hi everyone, today's revision video is a how to revise video and it's about creating mind maps. I'm going to do a series of videos where I look at methods and activities you can use to revise, because people are always asking me how do we revise for English apart from learning quotes and writing practice essays, and there are other things you can do to practice and revise. One that is often used is mind mapping, but what I see and what other English teachers see is sometimes people confuse mind mapping with planning, or mind mapping with spider diagrams, and they're either too basic or they're too complicated. So today we're going to have a look at a good example. It's quite a brief example, but to show you the principles of what your mind map should look like. Mind mapping your text is a good way of mapping out all of your ideas across all of the text. I would say in particular it's very important for Animal Farm and the poems. And the reason those two texts are particularly important for mind mapping is because when you write about Animal Farm, you do not have an extract to prompt your thinking, and you might get what's called blank page syndrome. And it's where you see a blank page and you're stuck because you can't kind of nudge yourself to start. Whereas with Macbeth and Frankenstein in our school and in other schools, there'll be other novels and plays, what you get is you get an extract, so you're not completely stuck. You start usually by writing about the extract, and then from that you can draw in other ideas from the rest of the novel or play. You don't have that blank page scaring you at the start. With the poetry, you have one poem, but you don't have the other poem. So what tends to happen is you write so much about the poem you've seen, and the other one that you're meant to be comparing it to, you can't see it. And finally, with Animal Farm, it's important because, this blank page fear will get you, blank page syndrome. You will look at it, you just won't know what to write because you've got a question and you haven't got any extract to write about. So it's a good idea to have your themes, and the most important themes that are likely to come up mind mapped, and then by looking and revising those mind maps, you will almost always get a fairly similar question. We know that they usually ask in Animal Farm a question about a character linked to a theme, and a question about a theme and society. And if you do mind maps for each character and their key points, mind maps for each theme, working them through, reading them over, it will prompt you to start writing an effective plan and be able to stick to the question because you know enough about that theme. So let's have a look now at what a good mind map looks like. I think I've already mentioned that it shouldn't be a spider diagram. So here you've got power and control in Animal Farm. So you've got power, control. If you saw something like tyranny, for example, in an exam question, that could come on under this as well. A lot of the themes, they will have to, as the years go on, start using synonyms for power. So they might say power, they might say control, they might say tyranny, they might say domination. And you just got to think, okay, what is that? Okay, it's power and control. Lots of people will do this. And they'll put that in the middle, and then they'll put all the bits that come out here in red. And they'll put them out straight from the middle, straight out. But that's not a mind map. That's a spider diagram. So let's look at how this one has been done. They've put power and control in the middle. They have 1, 2, 3, 4 arrows coming out. And with these, they put the big ideas. So when you think power and control, you're going to think one character. And in this case, Napoleon. Napoleon is obsessed with power and control throughout the novel. You've also got Mr. Jones, but Mr. Jones is not there that much. So you've got Napoleon and Mr. Jones. He goes after the Battle of the Cowshed. And then you've got propaganda and rhetoric here, because he was thinking power and control. They're controlled by rhetoric. And then down here, this student has thought and dug a little bit deeper. Okay, what's the flip side? What enables this to happen? The other animals. They let themselves be dominated. So you've got dominator, dominator, how they dominate, and the other animals. That's your big four. So let's have a look how we follow it along. So we've got Napoleon. So then you do another branch out. You might want to add images. Some people find images and color coding very helpful. And here's kind of an overview of what Napoleon does. He takes control of the farm through fear and violence, and the power leads to corruption. They haven't just said Napoleon's powerful. They've said what happens to him once he's powerful and how he gets his power. And then you've got some useful quotes that come out from this. And the arrows make it like a flow of how things develop. So here you've got he takes control, they chase Snowball away, and you've got the dogs who are like his police state. And then here you've got that the dogs have complete power over terrifying the other animals for Napoleon. So his power is complete. So this branch does not stop there. It has almost a little timeline coming out. Another approach you can have is here you see propaganda and rhetoric. So propaganda and rhetoric, and there's a little definition here so that you're clear about what you're talking about. And you've got different minor characters and different quotes coming out here to link into this. So you've got Squealer could turn black into white. Well, that's one of those quotes that everyone learns off by heart. So yeah, propaganda and rhetoric is there. It's how power is controlled. Old Major, and again, just like with all of this person's mind mapping, it's a bit more sensitive, it's a bit more aware. The Old Major, he wants to overturn the power. Yeah, he's not a negative character in the sense of Napoleon, but he does want to overturn the existing power structure. So he does summarize what happens when you're under someone's power. Our lives are miserable, laborious and short. So it is to do with power and control. This branch here, this one doesn't just say Mr. Jones. It has a whole lot of stuff, including a bit of context about Orwell's beliefs in life and a quote. And here on this arrow, there are other animals, and then you've got some more quotes. Essentially, your mind map will look completely different depending on the character and the theme. You know, you color code it differently, you might add pictures, but there are 3 things that should be coming out of each branch. You should have key events and characters, you should have quotes, and you should have things like context, yeah? So this idea of propaganda, the power of language to incite action and manipulate, that is actually on the borders of context. When you look at what they look for in context, they don't just look for historical detail, they look at the bigger ideas in society. And here's some really overt context about what Orwell believed. It shouldn't be that each idea has its own arrow. So you can see there's lots of ideas here, but this one doesn't have like an arrow, an arrow, an arrow, an arrow. You go to the main ideas first, and I would say a maximum of about 5, so between 3 and 5. And then from the main ideas, maybe using color coding, maybe using images and words and phrases, you put other little arrows coming out. And these arrows could go 1, 2, they could take you on quite a long journey, or it could be that you've got the main idea with quite a bit written and then some smaller bits there. So the headlines for this is, yes, create mind maps, put a major theme in the middle, pull out the most important characters and events, including perhaps digging deeper and thinking, okay, so how does this situation arise? Not just the obvious character, but what's the flip side? The flip side here is that the animals are unwilling to go through another revolution, so that enables Napoleon to overpower them. So 1, 2, 3, or 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, no more than that. Then add your quotes and your context and your plot around those main ideas. So you only have 4 arrows from the middle, and then from those, all the others. Once you've got that, you can revise over it. You can use it as a plan for a practice essay. That's a good way of cementing it in your mind. You can use it and then find quotes, additional quotations. You can compare it. You can turn some of the ideas into flashcards, which I'll do another video on. So for example, if you were going, okay, I'm going to make a series of flashcards on propaganda and rhetoric, you could have this mind map in front of you with these covered, learn the quotes by flashcard and try and fill in the gaps. Yeah, so especially if you made your mind map using text boxes, you could delete some, print it out and try and write in those quotes and see, have you remembered the right quotes? So there's lots of ways you can use your mind map once you've got it. Predominantly it's a plan for practice essays and almost like a close, a fill the gaps exercise. If you do a nice paper one, use post-it notes to cover up bits and then try and rewrite it over the top. Can I remember those quotes? And keep reading them every day and it'll absorb. So there you go. I hope that was useful. Next video is going to be on flashcards.